Great question. And it's a rich discussion, but we can try to boil some points down. Atonement in Hebrew, that is a concept where there is an agreement between God and his covenant people, or an individual in that covenant. And that is what Yeshua describes as the only acceptable worship, which is in spirit and truth. That means confession of sin. But that doesn't mean if a guy commits a sin, and let's just imagine we go back and there's the tabernacle, and an Israelite commits a sin, and he goes to the priest, but he confesses a different sin. He confesses a sin he didn't actually commit, but he's a good, maybe he's scared of confessing his real sin. So he's like, you know what, I'm too ashamed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell the priest that I did this other sin. I'm totally making this up, but the idea is and then the priest hears him and goes, oh, okay. The priest, a Levitical priest, can't know the hearts. Yeshua's different. Yeshua smells it, knows it a mile away, right? This guy's holding something back, right? He's lying. But the Levitical priest is going to take this guy, maybe ask him a couple questions. The guy's like, okay. And then, so the Levitical priest is going to say, okay, so you owe such and such an offering. And then that guy goes and they do the offering according to the Torah. Here's the question. Is it a pleasing aroma unto the Lord? If there is a discrepancy between the confessed sin, in other words, the designation of this sin offering is X, Y, or Z sin, and the priest is slaughtering this sin offering under this pretense, it's not a pleasing aroma unto the Lord. The pleasing aroma unto the Lord, whether it's a whole burnt offering, whether it's a meal, a grain offering, whether it's a peace or fellowship offering, zevek shlamim it's called, or whether it's a chatat, a sin offering. In the Torah, they're described as it has to be a pleasing aroma unto the Lord. And the pleasing aroma unto the Lord is the way that in Leviticus it's described, well, not just Leviticus. I mean, even Noah's burnt offerings after the flood were a pleasing aroma. That means that it's acceptable worship. And acceptable worship is defined by spirit and truth. So and this is why in Isaiah chapter 1, God's like, stop offering these sacrifices. Your hands are stained with blood, but you keep, your Sabbaths mean nothing to me. Your burnt offerings are a stench. I'm paraphrasing here, but the idea is why? Because they're not pleasing aroma. So God's not going to allow that temple to stay. So the discrepancy. So when the Torah says it will be forgiven him and it will be a pleasing aroma to God, the presumption is that this is confession of actual sin that matches God's perspective on what that sin is. There has to be what God says is true, and I am being corrected. I am acknowledging and confessing what God says is true is sin, and I'm confessing to its presence in my life or my behavior. And now I am seeking reconciliation where God hasn't changed. In this transaction, God has not changed. What it changes is the confessor. And then finally, I would say there is no true confession apart from the work of the Holy Spirit in the heart. So there's never been an acceptable worship. There's never been acceptable worship in Israel, except that the worshipers were moved by the Holy Spirit.
So I think I'm tracking with you somewhat. You lost me a little bit, but ultimately, I think you're correct that this is a hard issue, right? In terms of being for a person to be forgiven of sin, It's a heart issue, right? And so this is one of the
That's
reasons
why
that
David says, and he says, if it would matter, and I gave 1,000, ram, I would do it. But he's like, that's not.
the blood of, so we're told the blood of bulls and goats never takes away sin. In Isaiah, right, God says, stop bringing your stinking sacrifices, starting in chapter 1, stop bringing your stinking sacrifices, they're a stench to my nostrils, right? So there's a juxtaposition here. So clearly you are correct in your assessment that it is a heart issue. The heart issue must come first. What I see the commentor asking is, what about these texts where, and I want to go, give me just 1 second. I want to grab these texts again. What about these texts where it seems like it says that that these sacrifices bring atonement? I'm sorry, I have this word "and" in here. So I think that each one of these needs, to be taken individually. So Leviticus 4:20, thus shall he do with the bull as he did with the bull of the sin offering. Now, pause real quick. We're talking about, I would say that this might be shocking, and I might get reprimanded by Rob for this. I would say that the blood of bulls and goats does take away sin when we're talking about a nation. Israel comes and they bring their Yom Kippur sacrifice. The Yom Kippur sacrifice is a sacrifice for the nation of Israel. Now, this does not take away sin on an individual level, but it resets the nation of Israel to clean before God. It atones for the nation itself in that respect. And so in 4:20 it says, and the priest shall make atonement for them, and they shall be forgiven. Once again, when we see the sacrificial system, it is a picture of individual. It's the nation, but it's a picture of individual salvation through the blood of Christ. So in 4:20, I would say that this here actually is talking about atonement for the nation of Israel, which the blood of bulls and goats does affect. The nation of Israel is affected by the sacrifices that they as a community come and bring before God. That's number one. Then we get to 5:10. Now 5:10 is an interesting one, and the reason why is because, and once again, I think that every time you see something like this, you're going to have to take it individually. Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications, and we'll see you in the next video.